Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. I'm recording this a little bit after we have already done the recording, just because we kind of went straight into the podcast itself, so we didn't have time to do intros or any of that stuff. This week's episode was with Jeremy Wagner from Broken Hope. It's a great interview, and I think you all are going to be very pleasantly surprised. Matt, the fucking champ, he had to wake up at about 6 a.m. his time to do this podcast. So, if he sounds a little out of it, that's why. But he's the fucking man for having to wake up that early. Not only that, we did 2 podcasts back to back. So we hope that if you're listening for the first time for this podcast, you enjoy it and you'll come back for more. And enjoy Jeremy Wagner. All right, so Jeremy, thank you for doing this podcast, man. We appreciate you coming on today.
And thank you as well. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's great.
Yeah, no problem. So I guess the first thing we like to ask before we talk about the new album and everything like that, since this is kind of like about the history of metal is what we do, what are a couple records off the top of your head that kind of got you into not just metal, but also playing guitar?
Sure. I'd say first, like what I would say as a real metal album would be Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance got me into metal. That was a real metal album.
Yeah.
Before that, I'd been listening to more, your garden variety, hard rock type of bands. Motley Crue had come out with Shout at the Devil, and I don't know if you remember a band called Zebra, but they came out with their debut album about, 82 or 83. I was into them and Crocus and stuff, but my tastes were evolving quick, towards heavier stuff. And then I discovered Metallica, Kill 'Em All, but specifically it was Ride the Lightning. To your question about wanting to become a guitarist and being a metal fan, I was already becoming a metal fan and getting into heavier music, but it was that album, Ride the Lightning. I'll never forget. That's what made me want to become a guitar player, because I never heard any music like that in my life. In 1984, and the riffs, and I just, that album, man, I couldn't get enough of it, and I just listened to it over and over and over again. And then 86 came around, and we had Master of Puppets come out, we had Slayer, Rain and Blood, and just so many other great albums, and my tastes were getting heavier. Slayer was heavier in my book than Metallica, and faster, and that was right up my alley. And then, it just grew from there. Celtic Frost, Dark Angel was really getting into heavier thrash bands. And then I discovered death metal. And by then, I had already been a guitar player and started forming my first band, which became Broken Hope. So by 1988, I was already writing my own music and formed Broken Hope, and the rest is history, which kind of fits into your program.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty
29 years later.
Yeah, you guys have had a long career, and it's really interesting to me too, because a couple other people that we've had on have also mentioned that Ride the Lightning was like the album that kind of like they never heard anything like that before, and it got him into playing guitar and like wanting to play faster and kind of like this style that they had not heard before. And I agree, that's probably like my favorite Metallica album by far is Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, right on. That's awesome.
So with forming Broken Hope, out of like the evolution of all that stuff, do you feel like it was a natural progression to kind of start writing the kind of music you did from listening to those bands?
Yeah. When I first started taking guitar lessons, I was in high school, and anyone else that was playing guitar in my high school that were in bands, they were all in cover bands, and they were playing other people's, tunes and playing like the local Legion halls in my area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the northern burbs of Chicago, and I was like, that's not for me. I just knew right out of the gate, like, I don't want to be in a cover band playing, a mishmash of Van Halen and Metallica and whatever else, these other bands are playing now. I was like the only kid in my school that was, discovering Sepultura and Morbid Angel and stuff, and I'm like, this is what I was meant to play. So I was taking guitar lessons, and two things happened. One, I had a really good teacher who was also in a metal band. I don't know if you guys know the band Numbskull from the 1980s, but they did a debut album called Ritually Abused, and the teacher I had, Tom Bradner, he had formed Numbskull, and he was the main songwriter and an exceptional guitar teacher. He came from a background where he went to college, got a degree in music. He was a classically trained guitarist, so he could play everything from like Paganini stuff to Randy Rhoads solos note for note, but he also was like, had the same taste as me, was really into heavy music. And so he opened a bunch of doors because he would show me riffs by my favorite bands. Again, mind you, I didn't want to be in a cover band, but there were riffs I wanted to learn. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to learn how to play Ride the Lightning or Jump in the Fire to, Raining Blood and stuff, And he could teach me that, and that helped develop my understanding of how heavy riffs are played. But he also taught me some music theory type of stuff, and then I took summer classes at a local college for music theory. So I wove all this stuff together. People that know my role in Broken Hope, like I write most of the music, most of the riffage, and all the lyrics, but I'm not really known as the lead guy. But behind the scenes, I still practice my modes, my arpeggios, my speed runs, and all the shred stuff to always keep my chops up. But aside from that, because I have a passion for guitar, I just love writing super heavy riffs, and just that's kind of where I found my niche. So when I was in high school, taking these lessons and developing my skills, I started writing my own music. Because I was just, I was inspired to do so. I had nothing else going on, too. At the time, as a teenager, I didn't have cable TV in my house, what a lot of other people did. There was, people like my age or older always say, I didn't have the internet or cell phones and all that crap. And it's true. I just had a guitar and an amp and a single-minded thing I wanted to do, and that's like form a band, write the heaviest music I could, and write really, sick lyrics. I was also a short story writer and poetry writer, and now I'm a published novelist, and I write outside of Broken Hope. I write novels full time too.
Oh, very nice.
And so aside from music, I was always writing stuff, like all these crazy little flash fiction horror ideas that I turned into lyrics. And in fact, the name Broken Hope, the band name, came from a poem I wrote, a real dark poem that had the words Broken Hope in it, in a line, and that's kind of where, like, Joe and Ryan, our former singer and drummer, who formed the band with me, there was the three of us who wrote down a list of band names, and Broken Hope was on there, and everybody thought, one, that wasn't a typical death metal name, and two, it was heavy sounding. So anyway, all these bands that were in my high school that played covers, they always would tell me my music sucked, death metal, what's that? Oh my God, that vocalist sounds like shit, But I've always been a person that never listen to naysayers. And one thing I like to do in this stage of my life, now that I'm older, is I always encourage young people who are forming bands or who want to be writers or who want to do art or anything in life. I always encourage young people, look, follow your dreams. Do it because you love it. You might not be super successful and rich from it, but if you find something you love in life, grab it with both hands. You never know where it can take you. And don't listen to naysayers, because people, whether it's your own family members, which sucks, but there's family members, there's friends, there's just people around you who will say, you'll never do that, you'll never succeed, you'll never go anywhere with that. And naysayers always have no ambition, and they never did anything in their life. So ignore that shit like I did and persevere. So all those bands I went to school with that said I sucked, I've run into them over decades, and, they're like, hey, wow, I saw your record in the record store, or saw you in a magazine at the local grocery store, and, wow, look at you. Like,
they've had
yeah. And mind you, look, Broken Hope, we're like barely a pimple on the ass of extreme metal. We're not the world's biggest band, but, God damn it, this is our 7th studio album. We're still here, and you know what? I think we've done something cool after all these years, and it's great to put a new album out. And when I put an album out, and again, this is relevant to that the teenage Jeremy Wagner I told you about, I still get excited and hungry and not sick of doing this. It's always a thrill for me. I mean, when I was putting out Swamped in Gore, our first album, I dreamed of holding a CD of mine in my hand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
much
pretty
less
surreal,
touring or having any kind of recognition. So I still get a charge out of seeing what the layout's going to look like for the CD or the vinyl, and holding that in my hand, that finished product. And then when if anyone tells me that they love it, well, that's just a bonus,
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed is you guys have had to persevere through a lot of things, whether it be like members passing away or just like taking a little hiatus, and you guys have always managed to keep going through all that. And it's very, I can tell now listening to you talk, like you have this attitude, this thing like, I'm just going to keep doing this because it means a lot to me. And it was also interesting hearing you talk about like not giving up on your dreams and having this positive attitude, which is funny because it's kind of like the antithesis of the name Broken Hope, where it sounds like all gloom and doom. So that's really awesome hearing that you're all about keep going. It's fucking amazing, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So let's run through the new album. We love hearing about like the recording process for everything, whatever kind of stuff you guys did to get ready, like to what equipment you use. We love hearing about all that stuff. So if you want to kind of give us a little behind the scenes of that, we'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely. Well, two things regarding the writing of the album and recording. There's two things that were happening at the same time at my house. I call my house Broken Hope HQ because this is where Broken Hope rehearses for tours and where we write music and where we record actually too. When we did the last album, Omen of Disease, we did that album at 3 different studios.
Wow.
And before that, the first 5 albums we always did in, we had this, it was a luxury. We had this studio that Brian Griffin, our former guitar player, ran. So we basically could take an album budget and really milk it and not be on a clock, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian would work his tail off And we'd record late at night, and sometimes, when the regular studio hours weren't going. And that resulted in us producing our own albums, having our own sound, and really just being comfortable in the studio. And again, no pressure, no time restraint. Now, Omen of Disease was the first time we went into the studio, and we had deadlines, not only with the label, but with getting tracking done. One studio, we'd have to have tracking done for guitars and bass and drums by a certain date, and then another studio, we'd have vocals, and then another studio mixing and mastering, and three studios, three different states. And I didn't really like that. I felt a lot of pressure, and I just felt like there were too many cooks in the kitchen. That's kind of how I like to sum it up, because you had all these studio guys and different engineers, and then band members, all putting their 2 cents in and trying to juggle and maintain stuff. I'm really the guy who's managing the whole process and dealing with the record label at all times, and I found it a little bit stressful. So this time when we were writing the album, what I did was I decided I was going to put a bunch of money into building a really top-of-the-line home studio.
Okay.
And the engineer who engineered the Omen of Disease album, the last album, Scott Creekmore, he's a studio Jedi. He is so in touch with modern studio equipment, software, plugins, and all this stuff. And he helped build my entire studio, from the console to all the outboard gear to the Pro Tools programs, the plugins, and whatnot. And by the time I was done, between the gear, the preamps, the microphones, everything, I have a really state-of-the-art recording studio. It's one I like to say that like a Mark Lewis or an Andy Sneap, might salivate over. It's that good.
Oh.
That said, though, guys, I'm by no means a studio whiz. I'm on a huge learning curve. Even after all these years, I'm still learning how to run a board and
I can imagine, because the technology changes so much.
Yeah, you got to just do your best to keep up with it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm fortunate that I have Scott Creekmore in my corner. He's one of my best friends, probably one of my oldest friends since I was a kid, and we're really tight. And again, he built that studio. He knows it inside out. So he was the perfect person to not only return and engineer this album like he did last time, but this time he co-produced it with us. And that whole thing, and working with Scott, building the studio and recording, was all happening while we were, writing the album. And what we did is basically, and that nothing's really changed with the songwriting of Broken Hope musically. Typically, what we've always done is, like, for example, I'll write a riff or an entire song or put riffs together, write a whole song on my own in the home studio, or in the past in my apartment or my bedroom, and bring it to our drummer and then make a song out of it. Or the other way we write music is we have like Mike, our drummer, and myself in a room, and we start sometimes spontaneously writing riffs and writing, entire songs together on the spot. And this time around, Damien, our singer, he's also a guitar player and singer in the band Gorgasm. So
yeah,
he's, a natural old school death metal riffer, and he brought some really great riffs to the table. He wrote the music to a song called The Bunker, and he co-wrote a song with me called The Carrion Eaters, which we have a video for that coming out too. That should be pretty cool.
Awesome.
And he wrote another song. So, but his approach was the same as me. He'd write riffs at home, bring them to work on with Mike, or sometimes him and Mike would just sit in the studio here at Broken Hope HQ, and boom, next thing you know, they got a song. So that's how it all fell into place. And next thing you know, we got like 12 songs, and all the time, too, behind the scenes, I'm writing lyrics and giving them to Damien, and he's just placing the lyrics to what song musically he feels, it fits. And that's, again, that whole process I just described, it's kind of like just the way I used to do it in the 90s with, Joel Thychek and Ryan Stanek. And it's cool. It's just really natural, that process. And now that we have a home studio, it feels like the old days, too. We're not on a clock, and we were able to really take our time to flesh this album out. And the end result is really, really something I'm proud of. Mutilated and Assimilated. It really blows my hair back to listen to it, and I say that, I really try to say that in an unbiased way, and as a death metal fan, and I just I'm really proud. It's like having a kid.
Yeah.
This is my 7th kid, and my 8th kid if you count the Live Disease live album and DVD that came out. But that aside, it's just it's my baby. So anyway, that whole thing I was explaining, this has happened over. So the last 2 years, we've been putting the studio together,
okay,
writing, recording, and boom, here we are. So it's taken about 24 months just to get this whole thing together.
Which, I mean, that's good to hear, because sometimes a lot of bands will just like worry too much about being on like an album cycle, and they'll rush into something and not take their time, and the output isn't going to be as good because they're worried about that kind of thing. And it seems like you guys already had a game plan ready to go and weren't too worried about just like getting an album out. And that's a lot better of a product or, piece of art, I guess, than if you were just kind of like rushing through it.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a good point, because one of my opinions or perspectives, whatever you want to call it, is this. I've always looked at an album that I do in a couple of ways. One, an album is eternal. When you turn that into the label and they put it out, you give it to the world, and that album, that's it, man. That album is forever. Sure, you could come back years later and re-release an album like many bands do, remastered and with bonus tracks and stuff. But the album really hasn't changed. It's that album title.
Yeah.
When people hear it for the first time, whether it's on release day or generations from now, just discovering Broken Hope, I'm thinking, as a person who made it, that I want people to be impressed from the first spin. That's important to me, and that's part of, like what you said, my art. Like a painting. The painting's done, boom, it's going to be on exhibit in a gallery or something to that effect, if that analogy makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other part of my perspective, the second part, is I've always strived for quality control. And by that, I mean I want quality control in the riffs we write, the arrangements of the riffs. It's like I want to maintain the Broken Hope formula and the Broken Hope sound and brutality, but I also want to offer something fresh, new ideas, riff-wise and whatnot, while at the same time making sure it pummels and crushes for the listener.
Yeah.
So, so to that end, we don't let any weak riffs, if you will, make it through the conveyor belt, at the old riff factory, and we don't we just don't let anything get out that we haven't all, as a band, 5 guys, signed off on and approved. And the other part of the quality control is the production and quality of the recording. That's just really important to me. I still really keep one foot in the underground, if you follow me. The underground is where we came from. The underground is what still embraces Broken Hope. I don't give a shit if, we get a great review in Rolling Stone.
Mm-hmm.
That's a feather in my cap. Wow, we got, we're Broken Hope's mentioned in Rolling Stone. That's fucking pretty awesome. But you know what? I don't forget where I came from, and I keep one foot in the underground. And to that end, it's those fans, those diehard fans, I'm always thinking of, and I want to make sure that I blow their minds with super heavy music and quality production when you're paying for it. I know, if the old attitude of like the black metal bands, they sure like lo-fi and they don't give a shit about production.
Yes.
That's part of they're keeping a foot in the underground. They don't want to have great production. I do want to have great production. Doesn't take away from the brutality. I want people to get their money's worth. And again, that album's eternal. So I want it to stand the test of time, if you follow me.
Yeah, and that's something we've noticed doing this podcast when we talk about records, especially ones like where we're at now, kind of in the 80s, that you see a lot of bands that kind of just stuck to their formula and didn't try to offer anything new with each subsequent release. And it's unfortunate because a lot of those bands, they could have gotten bigger if they just tried to make something that was better than the last thing they put out. And it's really cool to hear that you guys are always trying to do something better and stronger and faster, so to speak,
Yeah.
But at the same time, just as you said before, keeping your foot in the underground, remembering, who you essentially are.
Yeah, exactly. That's important to me. It's part of my. I'm all about trying to, maintain integrity. No matter where I am in life, successful or not successful, whatever. I just never forget where I come from, and we wouldn't be Broken Hope outside of a garage if it wasn't for people around the world who embrace the band. And you talk about underground, that's where we came from. Back in high school, like I was telling you guys, when I formed the band, we were tape trading.
Oh, yeah.
And we were tape trading worldwide with our demos, and that was what was putting us on the map. You talk about marketing, that was the only way to market ourselves as an unsigned band. And I'll tell you what, when Swamped and Gore came out, back in 91, it sold 10,000 copies and went into a second pressing. And I'm telling you, I credit all that underground tape trading. It was the underground that gave us our first lift off the launch pad. And again, man, I don't know. I don't forget shit like that. You know what I mean? It's just a part of being grateful, for what we have. Something like that. Oh, and I meant to tell you, back to real quick, remember you guys brought up the point about some bands that get caught up in an album cycle.
Yeah.
And they're trying to put out an album, every 12 months or,
absolutely.
or shoehorning in an EP in there and stuff. And I had a talk with Chuck Billy of Testament. He's a friend of mine, and I actually brought this up not long ago. I was like, man, you guys had practice what you preach, and then in less than a year, if I got their timeline right, Souls of Black came out. It was so quick, and as a kid buying Testament albums back then, I was like, wow, I just blinked my eyes and they have another album out. And I always thought that didn't give you a lot of time to develop an album and support it on tour and really give it a life of its own. I would, Chuck is like, well, that's how, we did things back then. It wasn't with, every album wasn't like back to back, but shit in the 70s, like it had bands like Kiss and stuff. They'd be putting out 2 albums a year, maybe more.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, you got to let an album come out. You got to support it, let it breathe, and don't wait, too long. Like I wouldn't want to wait more than 5 years. I mean, that we're going on 4 years almost, just shy of, so 3 years and 8 months after Omen, we've got a new album. But that's push. I'd say give an album breathing room, put it out, and in a couple of years or more, 2-3 years, people are going to want your next album, and I think it'll have more impact. You know what I mean? I'm saying that as a guy in a band putting albums out, and as a fan. So anyway, I just wanted to recap that thing, since you guys mentioned the album cycle thing.
Yeah, and so with the home studio that you have, do you feel like that you can essentially like almost escape that now?
Yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Here, the plus side is, you got a home studio. It's completely just, stellar. You got everything you could hope for as a band to record with. Okay, and it's built right into where you rehearse and everything. What you get outside of like making the recording budget go far, and by the way, the budgets we get are so small. I don't know what we'd do if we had to go somewhere else, because frankly, we were able to take that money and pay the engineer for such a lengthy recording process, but we don't. Again, we're not on a clock, and when we're not recording an album now, from this point on, we can set up microphones when we write new music and record, the foundation of, like, say, riffs and drums, and then we can go in and screw around and layer it with harmonies and get a jump on vocal patterns and all kinds of stuff, and really be ahead of the game, and make each album from here on out even more fleshed out, if you follow me, and really something special.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I understand correctly, you recorded either some or all of the album with one of Jeff Hanneman's guitars?
Yes. In fact, the entire album, the whole thing was recorded with 2 of Jeff's guitars.
Oh, awesome.
One in particular primarily was this guitar that is called either the Bloodline guitar or God Send Death. Like the two Slayer songs. Like right around God Hates Us All there is when Jeff got this, and he used this guitar to record that album, and it's like featured in the Bloodline music video that Slayer did. And if you ever seen a Slayer DVD concert, War at the Warfield, he used it live on stage for that.
Oh, no way.
It's an exceptional instrument. Yeah. I have several of Jeff's guitars, a bunch of his gear, and just a whole, have a whole Hanneman museum now. When I acquired, a big part of his estate, and I played every guitar, and that one I'm talking about had just an amazing sound and feel, and that's the one used mostly for throughout the album. But regardless, Hanneman's guitars were used on all the rhythm tracks and for all the harmonies, and it's a legitimate Hanneman presence there. Moreover, we reamped some of his Marshall heads that I have, and kind of put that in there with like the gear that I use, and it's still the Broken Hope tone, but there's just some Hanneman DNA in there, and and back to that guitar I was telling you about it. When I put it on and I played it and I was jamming with Mike, I don't want to sound all like spiritual or nutty, but honest to God, I don't know if I was channeling Hanneman or what, but there are 3 tunes that Mike and I wrote on the spot within minutes, like 5 minutes each, every time I started writing with that guitar. So there's a number of songs that were written with that guitar too for the Broken Hope album, and I don't know, man. It was like there's just something special going on there. Maybe it's some kind of inspiration period, just playing that instrument and stuff. But anyway, it was cool. And there's I think that it's important to me it's important that I kept my word with Jeff's widow, Catherine Hanneman. I had told her I would play these guitars, I would write with them, I would record with them, and I'd always use them. That's no matter whose guitars they were, instruments are made to be played.
Yeah.
Now, I've had some people like, some people are like, oh, that shit should be in a museum, on display or something, or, put away and preserved in a casket somewhere or something, and some people might be like, oh, okay, you're playing Hanneman's guitars on an album, and like that's some kind of marketing ploy or something. But nothing could be farther from the truth than the fact that I legitimately, one, vowed to use that stuff, two, no one else would do this. If someone else acquired these guitars, I doubt that they'd be recording with them and honoring Jeff's legacy and his spirit in such a way that new music of a totally brutal nature was written and recorded with it. So to that end, I think it was really cool to use these guitars, give them a new lease on life, and to that end, we dedicated the new album to Jeff Hanneman. And you guys, with the history we've discussed with myself and Broken Hope, like I mentioned, 86 rolled around. I was around 16 years old. Discovered when Rain and Blood came out, that changed my life.
You probably heard
when the
that
shifter knob.
Yeah, you heard that at like the best time.
Dude, that album remains next to Ride the Lightning, one of my favorite albums of all time. And when I was 16, I had a ritual before school. That whole album is like 28, 29 minutes long or something.
Yeah.
So back when everything was on cassette, I had a cassette of Rain and Blood, and the entire album was from start to finish was on both sides of the tape. So you'd put on side A, it's the whole album start to finish, and you just flip it, and you'd hear the whole album again on side B.
Yeah,
so
I was just about to say that.
Get up for that's what you... Dude, I lived with my dad at the time. He would get up super early for work and leave, so he was gone by 5:30. I'd get up at 6 a.m. I think school started at about 8 a.m. So roll out of bed. I'd eat my, Cocoa Pebbles cereal, and then get ready to take a shower. And, man, that was my thing. I'd put the boom box, I had this huge boom box. I'd put it on the sink in my bathroom with the volume turned all the way up. I'd put in Rain and Blood on cassette, and for 30 minutes, I would shampoo and fucking headbang in the shower for 29 minutes or whatever, and boom, by the time Raining Blood finished, I was out of the shower and ready to go to school. And that album just fucking, that's the shit, man. And you know what? The point of telling you all this funny history is Hanneman, man. He wrote all the songs that I love by Slayer.
Yeah.
And he was one hell of a lyricist. And as a teenager, I aspired to be like Hanneman. I wanted to write sick riffs like that. I wanted to play super fucking fast and write really lethal lyrics. So he inspired me on so many levels. And he's, next to the other two H guys, Hammett, Hetfield, Hanneman, those are the top three, like, favorite guitar players of mine that really, changed my life and got me on this path. And then, like I said, then it became Chuck Schuldiner and Bill Steer, and Jesse Pintado, Terrorizer, Napalm Death, and fucking on, guys. Trevor from Obituary, you know what I mean? Those were all guitar influences of mine too. So, Hanneman, here we are, and I don't know, how surreal and cool is it that I'm honoring this hero of mine in such a unique way, you know what I mean? So I just think there's no hype, and I didn't do it, to make an album a selling point. Believe me, I could have just saved my money and not bought anything, and placed some full page ads if I was looking to get some kind of exposure for this album. I did it in honor of Jeff, and it's just a special part of Broken Hope history now. And if there's a higher place, I hope he's looking down, smiling at us, and going, "Hey, great fucking album. You guys kept it sick." You kept my guitars alive.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, I don't buy into all like the gimmick shit. So I think the guitar is in the right place with the right person, and it's fucking awesome that's how you want to keep going with his legacy, because you're absolutely right. The guitar should not be in a museum. That's such a waste, man. Like I wish somebody could take some of Dime's guitars and like play with those, or many other people like that. It's such a waste. Like it should not be in a museum.
If the tone you're getting for an album doesn't matter from what guitar, like it's fine, yeah.
Right. I know. I don't know if you guys are like old school, like fans of classic bands like Thin Lizzy or.
I love Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, this guy loves Thin Lizzy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
All right, awesome. The guitar player Gary Moore.
Yep.
He was in Thin Lizzy, and then he went solo for years, and then passed away. Well, he had a famous green Gibson guitar. I think it was a '59 Les Paul, and Gary Moore got that from Peter Green, who was the original guitar player for Fleetwood Mac.
Oh wow!
So that guitar was really famous because of Peter Green. Gary Moore acquired it years later, and wrote and recorded a bunch of epic songs throughout whatever Thin Lizzy in his solo career. When he passed away, Kirk Hammett bought that guitar, and Kirk's a friend of mine, and we had this whole discussion about preserving the legacy of famous guitars. He was asking me about the Hanneman guitars I got, and one of them is one of the guitars I have is Hanneman's Punk Rock Jackson, which is one of the probably the most iconic guitar in thrash metal history.
It's the one with all the stickers on it, right?
Or all the punk stickers on it, exactly.
Yeah.
Hanneman, that was his main guitar from the end of Rain and Blood era. He used that all the way up through, Divine Intervention, God Hates Us All, on and on. In between, using the ESPs later in life that he got, when he got his signature line with ESP. And that Jackson, I've played Broken Hope songs on it. I've written some stuff on it, and I really feel that guitar holds a shitload of history, and it holds a lot of power. Now, to that point, Kirk Hammett, when he got that Peter Green, Gary Moore Les Paul, he wanted it the same way I wanted the Hanneman stuff, because Gary Moore and Peter Green meant something to him in huge, profound ways. But also, he likes the aesthetics and feel of a Les Paul. I would never just buy Hanneman guitars because Jeff Hanneman had them. There's some, like B.C. Rich. I'm not a B.C. Rich guy, and there's some B.C. Riches that Hanneman had that I could have gotten, and I passed on them, because I feel if I'm going to play guitars by my hero, they got to feel right to me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If Hanneman had like a Gretsch, like the size of a boat that you would have played in the Rolling Stones in 1960. Unfortunately, that's not for me. I would not have bought it, whether Hanneman used it or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's again, integrity. It's got to be the right thing. I don't. If I was a collector, that's one thing. Then now I'd buy Eric Clapton guitars and shit. So anyway, the point is, Kirk wanted that guitar. He acquired it, and goddamn, if he doesn't use that guitar, when they do, like Metallica does that Whiskey in a Jar cover live, he busts that guitar out in honor of Gary Moore and Peter Green, man, and he plays the damn thing live. I've had the great honor of actually playing that Peter Green guitar at Kirk's house, and that's where we had this whole discussion. And I'm telling you, I know just from talking to him, man, there's fans, Thin Lizzy fans, that are delighted to see that guitar on stage again, actually, and it has a whole history. And again, that's the legacy of to honor the artist who wielded these guitars, and to keep them alive, and whether it's on stage, and or through music or whatever. Hey, if you want to throw this out there, people have Stradivarius violins. They're highly coveted. The damn things are hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And the craftsmanship and the legacy is there, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're worth millions of dollars. And look, people are playing them because, they're not in a glass case at the Louvre or some shit. They're meant to be played. And the history, and if you saw a goddamn Stradivarius from your seat at a classical concert or some other thing where a violinist has one of those, I don't know. Maybe I'm really easily impressed, but that blows me away. Go, wow, look at that instrument. That instrument in itself is a goddamn rock star. You know what I mean?
I've definitely seen that. One of the things I like doing is I love going to the symphony, especially at the Sydney Opera House. And by God, when you see one, it's like, it is amazing. Like, it just blows you away. It's like the sound of it compared to like the rest of the orchestra.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. Where are you guys from?
I'm from. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm actually from Sydney, Australia, and Dustin's from near Seattle.
Yeah, I've lived all over the place.
Cool.
So.
My wife and I got married in Australia.
Oh, awesome.
Nice. Whereabouts?
And we stayed in Sydney for a few days, and coincidentally, this was like 2011, 2010, something like that, and Metallica and Lamb of God played 2 concerts in Sydney. They certainly did. Yeah, so Broken Hope's ex-guitar player, Brian Griffin, is Lamb of God's tour manager and sound man, and between him and Kirk, when we flew in, we're like, holy shit, you guys are playing these concerts. So my wife and I went to both shows, and then they had a Metallica, Ross Halfin, their longtime photographer, had that Metallica photo exhibit. at a gallery in Sydney, and we went to that, and we bought some Ross Halfin prints, and that was really cool. But we actually got married in northern Queensland, on the Gold Coast, right on an island out in the Great Barrier Reef. I actually have an uncle who's a professor up there, up near Townsville, if you know where that's at.
Yeah, was that Hamilton Island, by the way?
No, it was called Orpheus Island.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, I know the one, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remote. We had to take a helicopter out there, but it was pretty cool. So, anyway, I just gotta say, Australia's got a place in my heart, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, fantastic! I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess we're winding down here. Any last things you want to share or let people know, or just kind of put out into the world there?
Yeah, sure. When does this interview come out? Are you guys playing it? Is it going to be out before the 23rd?
Absolutely.
Of June?
Yeah, I'm actually going to post it on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Well, I'd just like to say a few things. One, I'm really excited for all our fans and future fans who are checking this interview out to hear Mutilated and Assimilated. There's something I always say in every interview, and I always say this statement, and that it sounds cliche, because every band says it, but this is, I feel, Broken Hope's finest hour between the song impact, the production, and our Broken Hope lineup, the guys in the band. We really worked hard and put forth our greatest effort. Whether it's greatest effort in history or at this time, this album just is something we're so proud of. And again, we just are so excited for everyone to hear this. We have some cool stuff coming down the pike before the release of the album for people to check out. We're going to have a few different music videos. We've got 2 official music videos with the band, playing and bashing out a couple songs. We've got a really cool lyric video for the title track, Mutilated and Assimilated, that's fantastic. I can't wait for people to see it. It's something totally different, done in a way we've never done a video before, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And then we have webisodes, which will be coming out again between now and the release of the album. And the webisodes are also really cool because we're giving everyone an insight into that studio I told you guys about, into the tracking and recording of the album. People are going to actually see how we made the album. You're going to see how the artwork for the album came about and the concept behind that. We're going to have a webisode that features what horror culture, horror movies, horror everything influences Broken Hope, and the lyrics I write and our imagery and stuff. And just on and on. There's a lot of really special content coming out to share with all of you, for you really to see an intimate look into this album and how we did it. And I'm excited for you all to see that. And then other than that, guys, seriously, thank you. This is a great interview. You guys, you asked me really cool questions that aren't typical, and I appreciate that. And, thanks for letting me mutter away and gush about all things Broken Hope and Mutilated and Assimilated. I appreciate
man.
it.
We love it. I mean, we try, with podcasts, we just try to make it like a conversation, not asking like silly little like questions that don't matter. But yeah, man, this was fun and super informative, which is what we love. We love hearing like all the little ins and outs of how an album is made and how the band's history came about. I mean, that's what this podcast is about. So
exactly. So really
awesome,
thank you for coming on. Yeah.
Good stuff.
All right, Jeremy.
You guys got good things going on.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll post all the links to like when you guys start putting that stuff out. We'll throw them on our social media stuff so people can see them. And man, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It was my honor, guys, and really hope you guys like the new album when you hear it too. And hopefully between the Seattle area, right? That's where you're from.
Yep.
Up near Seattle.
Yeah.
Between Seattle and Sydney. I hope to meet you guys when Broken Hope hopefully lands and plays near where you live. So look forward to that too.
Absolutely, man. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for tour dates, and I'll be at a show for sure.
Yes, I mean, mate.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, mate. Take it easy.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed the podcast you just heard. We're kind of recording this after we recorded the interview just because it was we didn't want to keep them on the line to record all this mumbo jumbo. So
exactly, yeah. But yeah, we really hope that you guys really do appreciate enjoy those interviews. Have any feedback? Where can people deliver that to?
You can email us at heavymetalhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet us at heavymetalpod. You can Facebook us at Heavy Metal History. And you can send us dick pics at Heavy Metal History on Instagram. Just kidding.
I'll be looking at those ones. Very.
Yeah, man, we're fucking stoked. Jeremy from Broken Hope was amazing, and Fox was fucking awesome. And it's cool to hear that See You Next Tuesday is still doing stuff, and check out his other bands. We're going to put all the links to everything that they talked about in the show notes. And yeah, we hope you guys keep listening because we got some cool shit coming up.
Yeah, can't wait, man.
All right, Matt, you want to take us out with the typical goodbye?
Until then, cheers, cunts.